Hello everyone, what's up? Prince 12 here with another episode review of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Today we are taking a look at episode 8 of 8, the season 1 finale. Hopefully season 1 finale, and we do get more of these because I really like this show. So yeah, it's the last episode of the season. The kids return home, they're reunited with their parents, and nothing bad happens at all. And it's like, it's just a fun, it's like everyone just sits down to have a meal and learn about the lessons they learned along the way. No, that's not what happens. Actually, there's still a whole lot of action and things to happen afterward. So yeah, overall, good episode, good finale, I feel like. However, I find myself slightly unsatisfied with the ending. Just like one or two small things that I wish could have been done as either slightly better or just kind of differently entirely. The first thing I really want to talk about is the ending itself. I feel like I needed another 5 minutes from this because I do really like as the New Republic comes in and they grab KB out of the crash on Excinder, and they're all walking away, and then Wim just takes one last kind of whimsical look, whimsical. One last whimsical look up at the ship, and the memories of the adventure they just went on and everything, and he's got that hope-filled look in his face again for the first time in several episodes. And his dad yelling after him is like, "Oh, come on, don't get crushed by the falling ship." Yelling, "Wham, wham!" Kind of the comedic, overbearing father kind of way as the New Republic Corvette lands and everything. I like the cut to black there. I really wish it had picked up, gone like 1 month later or something like that, and we just got like 5 more minutes of a little bit of wrap up, just like. Well, it's strange that, no one could fight in Jod after the battle was over, to leave yourself open for another season. But hey, we've got our new bodyguard droid walking around with us. We've established contact with the New Republic. The schools are being overhauled. We know about, it's like, and it's like, because I feel like at least this is the impression I got, is that, it's like, oh, hey, Wim, I guess you don't have to take assessment anymore. It's like, well, he's going to take assessment somewhere else, as in he's probably going to join the New Republic, and like want to be a starfighter pilot or something, if I had to take a guess. But it's like, so I wanted another 5 minutes just to show the characters kind of, wrap up their journey just a little bit more, ending it where it did. Nice note and everything, but it's one of those, if we already had confirmation of a second season, then I'd be like, okay, great, perfect, fine, end it there. But with how Star Wars has been, I'm not even going to say Star Wars, just streaming shows in general have been treated the last couple years, where it's like if they don't immediately find an audience, they're just immediately strangled in the crib and left to die. It's like, nope, you don't get a second season. Your viewership wasn't big enough. It's like, what? And it's like, you had all these problems, and we're not going to give you a chance to learn and grow from that. It's like the Acolyte. It does make me kind of worried, because I've seen some data where the people have been talking about, like, the Nielsen ratings data and stuff for Skeleton Crew, and it's actually done worse than Acolyte in terms of some of the viewership numbers it's gotten. So obviously that does not bode well, but at the same time, I don't think we always get the full picture when we see some of that data. That was also like only midway through the season, I think, when that data's from. So now that the whole season's out, are people going to decide to now binge this because of good word of mouth? Who knows? So yeah, if we had immediate confirmation of a second season, then I think I'd be a little less meh about the ending. But as it stands, I'm not a huge fan of the way it ended. It's like I said, I just needed just a teensy bit more to feel like there was a real satisfying wrap up of this story and the characters, especially if this is just going to be a one-off. But at first I actually thought they were going to do that, because you have the moment where it's like you have the credits and everything, and they're clearly taken from like Wim's Jedi storybook or whatever, which is really cool. I liked that, and it's like Star Wars Skeleton Crew, and then it pans out, and then there's like the Star Wars '80s-esque TV set there. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then they're going to pan away from that, and then it's going to be like some extra bonus scene of them all. It is like an after credit stinger before the before the main credits. Whatever. Marvel does that stuff all the time. So I was kind of expecting that, but then it just cut to main credits. So I almost wonder if they did have more there, where they decided to leave a scene at the end off, because that just seemed like such a natural place to then like pan around the room, and then you've got just that extra little tidbit there. So yeah, the ending didn't quite, the ending in terms of that, where they actually ended it, didn't quite work for me. Like I said, would have preferred just a little bit more, but that's really more of just a personal nitpick thing for me. That I don't really think that's a actual huge problem with the episode, or the story overall. Now, something I will actually levy as a more legitimate complaint, and something I wish they did a better job on, was the parents. I know the story is not really about the parents per se. It's definitely more about these kids and Jod. But I wanted more from the parents, especially Wim's dad, because I feel like Wim's dad like got on side very quickly. I wanted a little bit more, and see, because when the show first started, and I was kind of thinking of where this was going and everything, I assumed that Wim's dad and Fern's mom were going to blast off past the barrier and chase after the kids, and they were both going to have like a little story arc of finding themselves and learning how to almost be kids again, because they were too stringent and caught up in the rules and everything. And to a kind of small degree, that is kind of what we get by the end, but obviously they don't blast off the planet. They just kind of like break protocol, and they send out the little transmission probe, and get stunned at the beginning of the last episode. Because we didn't spend just a whole lot of time with them, I feel like Wim's dad's change of course and really helping them out was too fast. I think it was definitely too fast. I feel like we needed I wanted. This is one of those things, and this is a complaint about the show, but it's not a complaint about the show, because it's probably outside of the show's control about this. I think this is more of a problem with streaming in general. Is a lot of these shows nowadays are too high budget with too few episodes. I think that's a major problem with the issues we had with The Acolyte. I think that's an issue that we have here with Skeleton Crew, where it's like, why was this only 8 episodes? Why couldn't you stretch it to 10? And my assumption is that the cost, because of all the CG involved, because it's Star Wars. So it's like, can you not figure out a way to write your story to trim down on the budget? So that's another thing. It's like, well, is some of this the storytelling at hand? With The Acolyte, I definitely think some of it's probably the storytelling. With Skeleton Crew, I don't know if it's necessarily an issue with the storytelling, and it's like, a lot of things that they were wanting to achieve with this was clearly high budget, and that was just in no way around that. But it's like, can you not figure out some way to trim down the budget a little bit, so that way you could stretch it out and maybe have 2 more episodes, or maybe even one, like maybe even just one more, like one episode, like one whole episode focusing on just the parents back home at Atten, trying to figure out how to get the kids so we could actually spend a decent amount of time with them. Because like, we know next to nothing about KB's parents or Neil's parents, other than like the species and the fact that they exist. I don't even think we see KB's parents again after the pirates break into. No, we do, because they get rounded up on the street, and they've got a comm link open to her and telling her that she can fix anything. Okay, never mind. So we do see them again. But I don't know. I feel like these projects are just the scope of them is just so way above what maybe a TV show needs to be. Because with I'm going on a little bit of a rant tangent here, so bear with me. But I feel like they start a lot of these series, and some of these shows just being one season could be totally fine, depending on what the story is, or just two seasons, like a limited series, where you do 12 episodes, you get one season, it's 12, it's 8 episodes, it's 12 episodes, whatever the number is, and you do it and it's done, and that idea of a limited series, I think, works. However, at least with Star Wars, no, not even just Star Wars. I think that is a issue with a lot of these streaming shows nowadays because they're just so huge. It's like everyone's trying to chase Game of Thrones in terms of production and budget and stakes, and I guess it's like because you know what I miss? You know what I really miss? I really miss Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I really miss Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I did reviews on the entire last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. if you want to go back and watch those if you want to. But now there was an era of television where we are going to figure out how to do 22 episodes a year on a substantially smaller budget. Yeah, the CG's not movie level, but we're crafting scenarios and we're mostly crafting scenarios and situations and characters to where we can make sure that the CG doesn't have to be outrageous, or in the location we can shoot on. If we don't need to be shooting on all the locations, we can make a set that looks fine. It's like, why can't Star Wars have an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where, and I think Skeleton Crew could maybe be one of those shows, and I mean in terms of scope of the budget, not necessarily the story. But why can't Star Wars have have an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. style show where it's network television and they only have so much money to go around and they're kind of having to pinch pennies, but at the end of the day they figure it out and they tell a good story from start to finish in a year in 22 episodes. Because I was going to say, it's like, oh, I wish the parents had more to do, and the Wim's dad's turnaround is too fast, and it's like, but I could go on about that, but I think the issue of why that is that there's just not enough time left for him to breathe for the parent characters to breathe in the story, because we are, rightfully so, for the time that's allotted, focusing on the kids. The story's about the kids, but. With the show being a send up to the old Amblin movies from the 80s, Spielberg and Treasure Planet and Treasure Island, and a lot of these older stories and stuff. There's a little bit of Wizard of Oz thrown in here with the supervisor and everything. The parents needed just a little bit more attention, because a lot of times parents in those stories do have, especially in like a lot of the 80s movies, it became a trope for a reason. Oh, it's the overworking, especially in the 90s. It's like, oh, it's the overworking parent who needs to learn to, it's like not take work so seriously and spend time with their family and everything. And that's straight up what they're clearly doing with Wim's dad. So I don't know. So yeah, I wanted them to spend more time with those characters, just a teensy bit, and so it's like, but I think part of the reason they didn't is that they just didn't have the time to, because it's like, it's a Star Wars show, you've got to have all these creature effects and CG and space and spaceships and big sets and everything, and it's so expensive, and I get it. Star Wars should be expensive. But at the same time, why can't you have a smaller scale Star Wars show where it's like, what if our only alien in the show was Neil, other than like his parents or something? And I'm just kind of spitballing randomly here. What if we limited the amount of creatures and aliens? Because there's a lot of prosthetics stuff at work. Like a lot of this stuff is borrowed. It's like the Quarren that gets blown up in his ship, in the pirate ship, the little fighter, snub-nosed fighter. In the last episode, trying to go through the barrier. I mean, that's clearly a costume they just mixed and matched with parts that they just took from The Mandalorian, because that was stuff that already existed. I mean, obviously. So at this point, they've got a whole production office, so it's not like they're having to make everything from scratch. Obviously, Vane, that's a character that was from The Mandalorian. The Urkel, they literally just slapped some like robot parts on him to give him like a little sci-fi flair and give him a Star Wars pirate gun. But it's like when crafting some of these stories, maybe, and this isn't just for Star Wars or Skeleton Crew, but look at this is streaming in general. It's like, why can't they figure out ways to? It's like, well, do we really need all of these characters? Can we truncate some of these characters down into one? Do we need all these crazy effects for all of these, or does this alien really need to look this way? Can we figure out a way to make it an alien? It's like, because I mean, that's what they did on the original Star Trek. Is like, well, Spock needs to look like an alien. What do we do for that? Give him pointy ears and paint his eyebrows weird. Boom, done. And I know the Klingons and other aliens are a little more involved with their makeup, but I don't know. I'm just kind of. I'm going on this rant, and it makes it sound like that I'm railing against Skeleton Crew and that the finale was terrible. No, it wasn't. It was a good finale. I'm just the thing that I'm kind of railing on is just the way some of the a lot of these streaming shows are being handled, and with giant budgets thrown towards them and stuff. It's like, why can't we just have a couple Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. type shows where it's like it's in this universe, but the budget's smaller, and we're focusing on some smaller side characters, and we don't need all this outrageous CG and all this stuff. It's like, why can't we do some of that? It's like maybe there's because I'm trying to think. It's like, am I wrong? And maybe I'm not even 30 years old, but I'm already kind of a back in my day with some of this. But it's like but I'm trying to think, like, when they started shooting The Office, when a lot of those actors were not known at all. No one knew who John Krasinski was. Like, Steve Carell was kind of the only big name involved with that show. It's like, how much did it take to shoot that show? Because I know they just filmed it in like an office in LA. You had Steve Carell and a bunch of nobody actors that no one knows. Like, how expensive was that show? These streamers and networks need to go back to like starting shows that way, where it's like you have like one or two maybe notable people, and to be fair, a lot of shows on network television are still doing this. I mean, you just watch commercials for like on NBC or ABC or anything. You still see shows like this, and there are still shows that are doing exactly what I'm talking about. So it's not like they don't exist. I haven't watched it in a long while. I was watching it for a bit on Hulu, but I stopped. But like The Rookie with Nathan Fillion, I know that they're going on like their 6th season or something, and that show's doing exactly what I'm talking about. You've got shows like Law and Order that have been doing the same thing for 30 years almost, and everything. So it's not like this type of television doesn't exist anymore. But I kind of wish that some of these streaming shows would maybe take a cue from some of those shows and see. It's like, well, how has Law and Order managed to stick around for 30 years? And it's like, well, granted, I'm sure the budget for Law and Order nowadays is probably huge. But like, it's like maybe some of these streaming shows should think to themselves, okay, let's start more like The Office, where we've got like one or two big actors, and the rest of them are kind of unknowns, and we start with kind of a simple premise where we don't need a lot, and then if we have a good enough idea, people will watch and it will take off, and then we can expand the budget from there because we'll have more viewership, and starting off with it's like, okay, this show's going to be, this first season is going to be 8 roughly 25-minute episodes, and that would, granted, the first episode was like an hour, so for Skeleton Crew, so credit where credit's due, the first episode was at least a little longer. But then the rest of these episodes it's like The Mandalorian, where it's like a lot of these are kind of really short episodes, and a lot of times I'm sure they have to be because of the huge, insane budget. It's like, can we can we come up with a and the and I think Marvel is actually kind of worse off in this case, where it's like they do Marvel has not done like a bunch of like they don't have one ongoing show. Like they've done a bunch of like in terms of what I was talking about a minute ago, like a limited series. So they have like, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They only did one season of that. WandaVision, they only did one season of that. They told their story and they got out. Loki got 2 seasons, but I'm pretty sure that's only because it was supposed to be one 12-episode season, but then COVID kind of interrupted their shooting schedules, so they just had to put out the first half, and then they finally got around, when schedules worked out, they finally got around to making the second season later. So that one I don't really count. And so like they keep jumping around, but even then those shows have their own problems because they've got like pacing some of them have pacing issues, and She-Hulk had more, but that show has its own problems, which I'm not going into from a writing standpoint. Daredevil Born Again maybe is going to be kind of more what I'm talking about, but we'll see. I'm very excited for it though. I may do reviews for that. I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, Marvel at least has their own set of problems going on. But it's like, why can't we have just like a smaller scale show on one of these streaming platforms that really kind of understands how to, it's like, okay, we're going to start small and go big, so that way we don't limit ourselves to 8 episodes. Because I think a lot of this really is time. I think a lot of these issues that I have with some of these stories have to do with time. The Obi-Wan show was kind of the opposite problem, where it went on probably too long. Where it's like, well, we needed because it was originally supposed to be a movie. Then they were turning it into a Disney Plus series. And then, well, if we're turning it into a Disney Plus series, then we need to expand it. It wasn't really the way the story that was presented. It didn't really need to be expanded. Like, it's like you could have cut some stuff out of there, and did you really need all of that in there? So it's been an interesting era of experimentation with the streamers and Disney Plus, and yeah, I don't know. Again, this is supposed to be a review for the last episode of Skeleton Crew. I liked it. I thought it was good. I want more. I liked the show. I just kind of wish that they had had a little bit more time. And also, another reason I say that is because if they do get picked up for a second season, it's probably going to be another 3 years before we get any more. And it's like, gosh, that's so long to wait. And by the time it finally comes out, are people going to be excited for more Skeleton Crew? I mean, I think a great example to look at. And so I think that's maybe something that they're going to have to weigh if they decide if they want to renew it and get another season going on. And that's something, and a good example to look to is Stranger Things. Because Stranger Things started in like 2016. By the time the final season airs, it's going to have been going for like 9 years or something like that. And these kids are supposed to have gone from like, I don't know, 12 years old and 12 to 20, but the shows, which is, I don't know if I've seen some leaks and stuff where it's like maybe they're making them older in the final season. They're doing a time jump to accommodate, but like the part of the charm of that original season, the full disclosure, I've never seen Stranger Things, so I'm just going off what I've heard from my dad and sister who have seen it. But from what I've heard, like some of the charm, the original charm of the show that's worn off over the time is that it feels like this big send up to old 80s kids movies or not kids movies, but movies starring kids like E.T. and the Goonies, a lot of what Skeleton Crew is trying to do. And a lot of that charm comes from the fact that the characters are children and their interactions with one another. So if they do another season of Skeleton Crew, they kind of need to hippity hop and get going, because these kids aren't getting any younger, and we don't want a Stranger Things season 5 issue on our hands where they are now 25 or 30 years old by the time the final season comes out. Because I saw a thing on one of the social media accounts the other day, where the kids were all playing, well, is it retro tech or is it Star Wars? And they were trying to pick which one was which, and they managed to get 100% track record, solely thanks to the kid that plays Neil, because the last thing that was going to trip them up was the comlink from A New Hope. And the other kids thought that that was like some sort of piece of old tech. But the kid that played Neil was like, no, I'm adamant that this is Star Wars. And they decided to trust him, and then he ended up getting it right, so they had a perfect score. And it's like they're all celebrating and cheering, and it's just cute. I like seeing these kids act together and play together. And it also was interesting to see the kid that plays Neil outside of the elephant costume and him actually being himself. So yeah, I think they definitely have something here, and I want them to do more. So pardon my rant against about the streaming model, but I don't know. I think that it's just one of those things that these studios need to work on and fix, because I think the way that they've been doing it so far and it's like at first I understand the appeal. That's like, hey, this show is a streaming show. It's not your network television. We're not going to do it like network television. This is going to be a more premiere, high budget thing. And I get that. And for some stories, they can totally tell their story that way, and it works, and it's fine. But not every story can only. Nowadays, I feel like that these streamers like Netflix and Disney Plus and Max have gotten so used to that just being the model, is that now a lot of shows just get greenlit with, all right, you got 8 episodes, and here's your X amount of number of budget and the hundreds of millions of dollars, make 8 episodes. And they're like, oh, well, we could really maybe, with the story we want to tell, we could maybe use 10. It's like, well, nope, sorry, you get 8. That's what everyone gets. Everyone gets 8. It's like, okay, well, we got to find some things to cut out now. And so, of course, this is all just me speculating. I have no idea what goes on behind closed doors. Maybe this show came together precisely the way they wanted to, without having to cut anything, and they included the parents just to the amount that they wanted to include the parents, because they have plans for the parents for season 2. So like, okay, well, the parents will just get a little bit to do in the first season, and then we've got ideas of how to expand on those characters and really emphasize character growth and arc with them in the second season. And if that's the case, then fine. Hey, all for it. It's like I can only react to the information that I have right now, and what I have right now. I'm like, yeah, I wish the parents had been more in it, because Wim's dad and Fern's mother being the big examples where it's like, yeah, no, I kind of wanted to. Well, no. I'm going to backtrack on that and just say Fern's dad. I think what they did with Fern's dad, Wim's dad, I think Fern's mother was actually fine, because she of all of them was kind of the more. It's I think they did enough with her her being in the room with Jod and having that danger present before her. I think that was enough for me. That's like, okay, it's and all she really had to do was make a decision to literally flip a switch. That was all she had to do. And so I think was fine. Wim's dad, though, I mean, he had to do a lot more. Like, he had to sneak into a place. He had to go on several speeder bike chases. I love the fact that they were doing the ET bike chase, basically, but they were being chased by space pirates. It's like, that was so cool. Then the driving over the water while they were being shot at is so great. Loved all that. So yeah, this finale was good. I just wanted more from Wim's dad and his character, because I think him being if they're going for this trope, they need to really execute on it well. It's like if they're going for the old tired trope of the dad's a workaholic and he doesn't spend enough time with his son and doesn't understand him, then they need to go all the way and really give him that obvious character redeeming moment where he's like, yes, I see what's really going on. Because as it stands right now, he just kind of, with the way the episode was presented, I feel like he just kind of got tossed into the adventure almost by accident, because he chases after the kids on the speeder bikes going, hey kids, stop this right now. Then he proceeds to be shot at, and then he just follows behind them and kind of oopsies himself into the adventure. He does have that little moment where they jump over the ravine. He's like, oh, that was cool, I did that. And you can see a little bit of elation in his eyes, but I needed just a little bit more from that. But anyway, I'm going on and on and on about this. That was really my only major complaint about the episode. I thought the rest of it was good. I liked the supervisor not being the pirate captain. I guess they probably had I guess they probably made the Tack Renner hologram be all staticky, or you couldn't see him properly as a red herring to throw us off, to make us think maybe he was in charge of Manhattan and speculate exactly like we did, me especially. But the supervisor being a big droid makes sense. That was another theory people were running with, and I think totally logically makes sense. Being voiced by Stephen Fry, that was cool. Always nice to see Stephen Fry pop up with things. He's fun. So I mean, yeah, the finale was good. I like this show. I hope they do more. I'm just I've had some of these feelings about streaming shows and how they run things bottled up for a while now, and this was just a good moment to get some of that out, because it's like, well, great, now we're gonna have to wait another like 2 or 3 years for the next season. That's ridiculous. Because I was like, and part of what's brought this up is I was thinking is that in April, I think it is, season 2 of The Last of Us comes out on Max, and I was thinking, it's like, oh, you know what? That was a nice fast turnaround. It's only been a year since the last season. And then I'm like, hold on, no, that's not right. And I double checked. I'm like, oh no, it's been 2 years since the first season came out. That was spring of 2023. And I thought it was, and so I'm like, no, okay, because this is 2025. So yeah, it's going to have been 2 years in between seasons, which I think is just ridiculous. But it's Pedro Pascal, and he's very busy, so scheduling, I understand it. So it's like so some of these shows, I just wish they could get out a little bit of a faster clip. Now, granted, I'm sure The Last of Us season 2 is going to be fantastic. It's, you know, and high budget and all that stuff. So it's going to probably be worth the wait. But just one of those things, like, come on, man, just hurry it up. We don't. It's like, because going back to my example of Stranger Things, like, how long is it going to have been between like season 4 and 5 of Stranger Things? Like 4 or 5 years almost, maybe. I mean, I feel like the last season of Stranger Things came out like right around COVID, and that was 2020. So it's, and I could be wrong on that, but like I said, I haven't seen it, but my dad and sister have watched it, and I've watched them watching it, and so I'm trying to think. It was like, whoa, when did that last season come out? So I know it's been a while, and then they didn't get started on this last season like they wanted to because of the writer's strike in 2023, and time just keeps moving faster and faster, and you realize how long the gap between things are. So anyway, my voice is starting to get hoarse. I've gone on about other things besides Skeleton Crew, but so just to wrap it up and emphasize once and for all, good show. I liked it. I would not be opposed to more. I hope it does well. I hope people end up watching it and liking it, because I thought it was a good show, and it was just a nice, fun 80s nostalgia romp that was just really, really fun. So yeah, that'll pretty much be it for this review. Any complaints I had in this episode about this episode were not to the fault of the creators of the episode itself. I'm pretty sure it's the companies in charge making the really big decisions, like doling out budgets and stuff. So yeah. So yeah, that'll be it for this review and for the last of Skeleton Crew. So thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Those links are in the description below, and I'll see you guys whenever I review something next, which who knows what that's going to be at this point. So yeah, so thank you for watching, and goodbye.